Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to the program. Instead of Mike Farwell, you have me. You have a lifelike plastic talk show host decoy placed strategically to frighten away the geese. So that's why I'm here today. And may I say that every time I filled in for Mike Farwell, which has been many times, that there have been no geese in the studio. So it's working. I think. I hate to blow my own horn, but, you know, I'm trying to do my job. Mike Farwell, obviously very tied up with the Kitchener Rangers and the series, the playoff series. I think tonight he's suiting up to play center. Frankly, I think they're pulling out all stops. And no, Mike will be doing the play-by-play. And listen, you can. Go Rangers go. You can do it the easy way. You can do it the hard way. So, yeah, down 3-0, whatever. Let's go. And we hope for the best. So there is that. And as you've been hearing, of course, 6:30 is the pregame with Mike Farwell and Paul Fixter. That is tonight. Now, speaking of that, by the way, and as we said earlier on the news on 570 News Radio, can we be more Canadian? And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Canada Votes, right? Canada Votes, and the first big leaders debate, which is in French tonight, in English tomorrow, and it's a little late in the campaign to have a leaders debate, but nevertheless, here we are. The Canada Votes, in probably, one could say, what is one of the more important elections we've had, certainly in the last 25, 30 years, one of our most important federal elections, and now a leaders debate, which is crucial. And here we are, and they move it up so it doesn't conflict with a hockey game. This is Canada. Canada Votes. Good for us, huh? This is the way we're going to do it. The debate is in Montreal. Of course, it's going to be on television and radio nationally, with translations for those who aren't that fluent in French, like Mr. Carney, but a lot of us. And it's in Montreal, and the Canadians are playing tonight. Now, the Canadians, I believe, and I had to look this up because I don't really get into it till about round 2 of the NHL playoffs. I've said this before. I'm not the hugest NHL fan these past few years, but nevertheless, I believe the Canadians clinched a playoff spot. So it's not that. It's the fact that they are still trying to decide who their opponent's going to be, home ice, that kind of thing. So it's a crucial game against, I think it's Carolina tonight. So, but it's weird because the debate was going to be at 8:00. I think the Habs game starts at 7. So they moved the debate up to 6:00, and the debate is 2 hours. So there will be an overlap, but it's not as big an overlap if they move the debate up. So it's interesting. I think that's fine. Frankly, it sounds a little, I don't know, a little sports nuts, and very Canadian. What I would question even before saying moving the debate up so it doesn't conflict with a Canadians game is how you would have a debate in Montreal and schedule the debate when there's a hockey game that night that is, going to be crucial. I mean, this is the end of the season. So, it's going to be important. And not to say the election isn't, but I mean, that our emotions and attentions are going to be split. Even people who aren't necessarily Habs fans. But there you go. I think it is so Canadian. It is so Canadian. Go Canadians. Go. In the meantime, speaking of, split and what you want to give your attention to is the Rangers. Go Rangers, go. Pre-game 6:30. If you can't make it to the game, it's all here on 570 News Radio, 6:30 pre-game with Mike Farwell and Paul Fixter in the game at 7:00. Andre, you're calling in early. Thanks for calling the show, Andre. Go ahead.
Yes, it's just good morning, Larry. That's what I'm trying to say.
Good morning.
Yes, good to hear from you. I have to say two things. One's about politics. I don't understand how, I should say the federal, because it's NDP and the Bloc, that they want to suspend their what do you call that? Help me out, Larry. What they're going to do
I don't know. The debate tonight?
Yeah, the debate.
Yes.
Right? They want to suspend it. They want to suspend that, and that kind of mind blow me, because, like, what about all the policemen, the ambulance, the first line? They want to take a night off for that game, but they can't. So why are they mentioning about themselves to take that day off because of it? Like, I know it's so Canadian, but that's just not a good pitch. My other point about that is, I'm going towards conservator, and I don't like seeing in Alberta the fight between conservator, Poilievre, Doug Ford. They're not on the same page, and that's what I think is giving the federal some juice ahead. What do you think, Larry?
Thanks for the call, Andre. I think the part of the and I'm just going to blank on the names here for a second. Is it Byrne, who is the chief campaign advisor for the Poilievre campaign, and Corey Tenike, who is been the campaign. He's been a long time conservative campaign strategist and manager, going back to Harper days, probably even beyond that. But lately, Tenike has been Ford's campaign manager, and when Carney came on, the Liberal fortunes turned, at least according to the polls, and the Liberals were dominating. Now that gap has since narrowed a little bit, so well, I wouldn't say a little bit, maybe significantly, right? So it's hard to say that they should turn the Poilievre campaign around, because he's starting to close that gap that Carney had near the beginning. Like, I'm sure the Liberals, if they could say, well, let's have the election tomorrow, they would rather do that than say another 10 days for the Conservatives. But that's been the disagreement. I think it's been the disagreement about how the campaign is going between Ford and Poilievre. So they're not on the same page that way, to kind of long-windedly answer your question. But the fact also that gap that Carney enjoyed when he came on is closing may, in fact, favor Poilievre's campaign strategy. In other words, we were going to do it this way, and we stayed on our course, and look at that, we're closing the gap. So, but I mean, any party, whether it's Liberals, NDP, or the Conservatives, and there's various conservative factions, there's a Conservative Party of Canada, there's a Progressive Conservatives of Ontario, there's this Saskatchewan Party, I forget what the Alberta Party is even called. It's all conservatives. They're just under so many different banners. So they're going to disagree. But within any movement, I think when you have disagreement, it's not good for the overall, if that's what you were getting at. Anyway, it's Larry Fedoruk for the Mike Farwell Show. More in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Today, off the top of the show, I refer to myself as the lifelike plastic talk show host decoy. And I was referring to I'm just fascinated by this story, I guess, of the decision not to put those plastic lifelike, well, I don't know how lifelike they are, but nevertheless, they're scary looking, those plastic coyote decoys back into Waterloo Park this season. Right. So if you haven't seen them last year, if you don't frequent Waterloo Park around the Silver Lake area, then go to our website, which is kitchenercitynews.ca, and look at the story, because there's just a wonderful picture of one of the decoys. You'd think it would be just a coyote just kind of standing there. You ever spot one just on the road or in a field? They're just kind of standing there, and they look menacing even at that. Right. And I had one in front of my car stroll onto on an off ramp of the 401 one time a couple of years ago, and I'm going to work early like I'm doing a radio show first thing in the morning, so it's like 4 a.m. I'm going to work, and luckily I'm going fairly slow on this off ramp, and this coyote strolls onto the off ramp, so I stop, and there's no traffic, so nobody's going to smack into me or whatever. And this thing stares me down, and I just lay on the horn, and I sort of inch up towards it, flash the lights. I'm doing whatever I have available in the car. I'm trying to scare this coyote, and it ends up freaking me out. And I'm in a big 2-ton locked up car with the windows rolled up, blaring the horn. He's just like, yeah. And then when he decided it was time to finish crossing the off-ramp, he decided, and I was able to proceed. They're frightening. But those plastic decoys are even more. I was thinking, that they would make a great Halloween lawn decoration. I mean, that they're apparently about $100 each, those decoys, which is what you would pay for a big size plastic lawn thing for Halloween, if you want to really freak out the neighbors and the kids coming by. I think that's what they look like to me. They look like they'd make a really good Halloween thing. But anyway, they won't be in the park this year, so that's what I was referring to. And go to the website, look at the pictures, because they are pretty freaky. Is this Johan? Am I getting the name right? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, is this Johan?
Yes,
yeah.
This is Johan. Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to ask you about the politics of climate change.
All right.
Now, Justin Trudeau was going to make the next election on pollution, which is really the only thing that matters in the whole world. But you can see how people feel about trying to, solve the pollution problem. And there were other politicians who tried it, like Khan in Pakistan. He had a 1 billion tree tsunami plan. He was going to build 1 billion trees in Pakistan so the glaciers wouldn't melt. But now he's in jail because people don't care about that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting that I don't think that's why he's in jail, but how...
I don't know why, but...
Yeah, but in times of economic stress...
See, that's the real issue. Donald Trump is now here, and he's
exactly.
Doing
My point is things like climate change, which I agree is so important. It's our very existence.
Well, not just ours, but the future.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's an existential topic, and yet it tends to fall back in the pecking order of topics when you have things like the economy ahead of you. So, and that's a shame. So we never really get to
lots
talk
of
about
money, like they keep saying AI, like these tariffs, if you follow the stock market, you know how the stocks go up and down depending on what Trump says.
Right.
There's people who will sell stock they do not own when it's high and then buy it when it's low. And that's called shorting the market. And they can make a ton of money. And
Johan, I got to run here just for time. Thanks for the call, man, but I got to run. But I mean, topics like climate change almost are, somebody described it as almost luxurious. It's a luxury we can't afford to talk about right now because there's economics and other things ahead of it, when really it is existential. And I don't know. I don't know how you change that narrative or even the importance of it. It's the Mike Farwell Show. I'm Larry Fedoruk. More in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Let me tell you about some of the things we've got coming up on the show today. Coming up after 10 o'clock this morning, we're going to talk about an Easter egg hunt. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's annual. The National Service Dogs Easter egg hunt is happening on Friday. So it is national. There's a lot of cities that have one of these National Service Dogs Easter egg hunts to raise funds, but two of them are in Kitchener and Guelph. So we're going to have the national executive director for National Service Dogs coming up after 10 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It's a family event, and I believe it's rain or shine. So, we get out and enjoy some Easter festivities and help out a worthy cause, which is National Service Dogs. That's coming up at 10. At 10:30 this morning, we're going to talk with a lecturer in business and economics at Wilfrid Laurier University, and a great article that the lecturer wrote about the boom we're seeing in Buy Canadian. Like, it's working, right? Like this whole idea of the patriotism get Buy Canadian, but on how many different levels it's working. I mean, there are apps and plugins you can get now to help you figure out if a product is Canadian. Shopify, people like that online are seeing a surge. It's not just the bricks and mortar retail seeing a surge. We're talking about labeling too, so that how many retailers put up labels so you can buy Canadian. Made in Canada, product of Canada has become so important. And what does it mean economically? Like, symbolically, it's terrific. I got my little Canada pennant up here in my little studio here. If you're watching on Rogers TV, I'm doing my little thing just to promote Canada. But it's working on so many levels. So we'll talk to the expert from Wilfrid Laurier University coming up just after 10:30 this morning about that. At 11 o'clock, we have Blue Jay Hunter. It's Wednesday, so Ian Hunter is going to be here to talk a little Blue Jays. I want to ask him about that Vladimir Guerrero contract. 14 years at $500 million. It's, is anybody worth that? And it's interesting that's where you have to go these days to get a franchise player, right? And then after 11:30 this morning, we're going to be talking about getting students involved in Cambridge for a Walk to Change 2025. This is for the Bridges Shelter. So we'll talk to them. So that's all coming up. And next on the program, when we return, we're going to speak to a Cambridge councillor who put forth a motion last night. We'll tell you what happened at that vote. Councillor Sherry Roberts going to be talking about rental replacement bylaw when we return in a moment on 570 News Radio. And if the question is, hey, do you know any good Easter egg hunts around? I do. There's one on Friday, and it's for National Service Dogs. We're going to be talking to them after 10 o'clock this morning. Because it's a national event, but as I said earlier, there's a hunt in Kitchener, there's one in Guelph, and I think Hamilton, and as I said, it's a national thing, but we'll talk more about that after 10 o'clock this morning. Last night at Cambridge City Council, there was a bylaw proposed to do with rental replacement, and the motion was put forward by our guest, Councillor Sherry Roberts, who joins us now. Councillor Roberts, thank you for joining us again.
Yes. Good morning, Larry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I want to talk about the vote last night and what happened at the end of it. And I know you've been on with Mike before and talking a lot about this, but can we just go back to the beginning for people who don't know what rental replacement is exactly, what your concern is, and how this was inspired by the Blair Road idea and all of that. If you could sort of start at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So the impetus of this, me bringing this forward, was a situation that happened with some residents right here in Ward 5, Cambridge, where there was 5 rental units. They were townhouses, and then 4 townhouses and a standalone home that was being rented out at a very affordable rate to families and some seniors. And then a developer purchased the property for redevelopment. And originally, the original developers were going to retain the existing rental units and sort of build around it, which was great. And then things changed. The property was sold to a different developer. That developer decided to no longer retain the rental units, to demolish them and build a different type of structure that wouldn't allow those buildings to stay intact. And this was going to be a just for condominium, just houses for purchase. And they were going to be well outside the price range of any of the folks that were living there. And so originally our council voted against this because we were very concerned about the displacement of these folks. And eventually it went to the OLT. The OLT sided in favor of the developer. And about 6 weeks ago, those 5 families were evicted from their homes. One of those individuals actually delegated last night at council. She's a senior citizen and indicated that she is currently homeless as a result of this situation. And this was so upsetting to me. And so I had a look at what other municipalities were doing to prevent this from happening. And our neighbors in the city of Kitchener have an active rental replacement bylaw, which basically says that when a developer comes and is going to be demolishing rental units, they need to put them back into the new development for a set period of time at a similar rent. And so we are looking at what we can do here in Cambridge that might be similar to protect some of our vulnerable residents.
So it went to a vote, and it was almost unanimous, 7-1 to do what now? A feasibility study on this? I mean, is that a win for you on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're having staff investigate what a rental replacement bylaw could look like here in the city of Cambridge. We need to balance this out with our development needs. We don't want to be doing anything that's going to de-incentivize developers. However, we do have a lot of vacant land where people aren't already living. We have brownfield spaces. We have all sorts of areas that are ripe for development. I don't believe that we necessarily have to be displacing folks in order to continue, chugging along the development road.
But is this more of a standby to standby kind of thing? Because these things take time. In the meantime, there's people being evicted and finding themselves homeless, as you said. But this is now being kicked down the road to next year, I guess. Yeah,
well, we have to be mindful and take our time. We want to do something that's going to be effective. We don't want to put something in place that has a bunch of loopholes and that isn't actually going to protect our residents. And so I've been told that we should see something in Q2 2026. So I know that feels far off, but I will be working hand in hand with our staff on this to make sure that we get something as soon as we can. We have a lot of other things happening planning-wise. We have, our half projects that we're working on, things like that. So I am excited about the developments that are happening around affordability in the city of Cambridge, and this is certainly going to be one piece of that, I hope.
And you brought it up, and the dissenting vote kind of said we should not discourage developers. We should not set up laws and what might be in effect roadblocks. We should be encouraging them. I guess you would want that, part of the bylaw, whatever, because there is that concern that the more rules and regulations there are, the less anxious developers will be to come into a community.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I look at it from the perspective of this type of bylaw can really create sort of clarity and predictability about what to expect when you come to the city of Cambridge to develop. So if you're not in the market to be a landlord and you don't want to have rental properties, maybe you would look at a different location. And like I said, we have plenty of spaces to build, and we're open for building here in Cambridge. Right.
And how long has Kitchener had theirs? I think Oakville has a similar law as well, right? And they haven't had. I'm sure they had those concerns at the beginning, but they've managed.
Yeah, certainly. Oakville I was just there the other day. It is full of development. There's lots going on in Oakville, tons of changes, and they've had theirs for some time. Kitchener has had it for 1 year, and the council asked staff to come back with a report on how it's been working in the last year, and they should be seeing that report this summer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's been going. I have been connecting with Kitchener councillors on this as well to get some feedback before I brought this forward. And I haven't heard that it's been a huge issue for developers. Like I said, we're the fastest growing region here, and there's lots of reasons to come and develop in Cambridge. And so, displacing folks is something that's, very, very important that we need to stop from happening. And there's lots of other places for people to build as well if they're concerned about the rental piece.
Well, the vote was 7-1, and I watched some of the proceedings, and you did have a lot of support from council and people who came to speak, but certainly among council, there was a lot of support for this idea. So all the best, and I'm sure we'll talk more in the future. Councillor, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.
By Councillor Sherry Roberts, who put forth this motion for a rental replacement bylaw, which basically says if you're a developer and you're going to develop a piece of property where there's rental units, you have to replace those rental units. There has to be affordable rental units there. You can't just knock them all down, put up expensive condos. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what a rental replacement bylaw would be. And the feasibility study, as Councillor Roberts said, Q2 of 2026. So it's a while before this is going to come in. We said Kitchener and Oakville already have these kinds of bylaws. What do you think? Is this a good idea? This is 570 News Radio. Back in a moment.
We want to do something that's going to be effective. We don't want to put something in place that has a bunch of loopholes and that isn't actually going to protect our residents. I've been told that we should see something in Q2 2026. So I will be working hand in hand with our staff on this to make sure that we get something as soon as we can. I am excited about the developments that are happening around affordability in the city of Cambridge, and this is certainly going to be one piece of that, I hope.
I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell today. You can hear Mike tonight on the play-by-play, 6:30 pregame right here on 570 News Radio. This is a must-win for the Rangers. But that was our guest moments ago. Councillor Sherry Roberts is who you heard there. And Cambridge councillor last night proposed a rental replacement bylaw. The vote was 7-1 in favor of moving forward with a feasibility study. And I agree 100% with Councillor Roberts about doing it right, doing it carefully, making sure that you have the right law, the right bylaw out there. I'm huge on that. But the other part of me says it's another government study that's going to come out now in about a year from right now. And I guess that's the way it is. I don't know that there's any, can you get a report next month so that we could maybe move ahead with it? No, it's going to take till Q2 of 2026 to have a feasibility study on the idea of a rental replacement bylaw. So as long as we're moving forward, I guess I will say, all right, that's good. As I said earlier, rental replacement just basically as a bylaw would tell a developer coming into, for example, Cambridge. We have one in Kitchener. There's one in Oakville. Here and there, they have these rental replacement bylaws that have come forth, especially during the housing crisis of the last few years, where people say, you can't just come in and tear down affordable rental units because not everybody's buying, not everybody can buy, not everybody wants to buy. So there's lifelong renters and people who need to rent and they need a roof over their head for them and their families. So they have rental units and they find a place that's affordable, and a developer comes in and tears that down and builds an expensive condo, which is more profitable for them. And I guess I understand commerce and profits, but what happens to these people and their affordable housing, their affordable rental housing? So rental replacement just says you can't do that. And it might apply. No, I shouldn't say might. It would apply to where there are rental units. That's not to say a developer couldn't build just big expensive condos or any townhomes or single, detached, whatever they want to build. You can still do that, but where there's already rental units, you can't displace those. You have to replace or something. Okay. And the Blair Road idea that sort of inspired councillor to put forth this motion for a bylaw, it's exactly what happened. A developer said, okay, I'm going to build around these rental units. And then another developer purchased the project and the land and said, no, I'm not. And that was now what inspired Councillor Roberts in Cambridge to go, let's have a rental replacement bylaw. I mean, it's interesting that, we have a federal leaders debate tonight in French and English tomorrow. And if you've been paying attention, as I try to do during elections, I try to actually keep abreast of what the plans and the policies are. But my point is that many of the leaders, I say the big three, are talking about housing as a federal election issue, and we've agreed long ago that to solve the housing crisis in Canada, it takes the feds and the province and the municipalities to be working together. Normally, in times are not normal, but normally what you'd say is it's the municipalities' issue, and there you go. But with municipalities not being able to carry deficits and relying on provincial funding, which in turn might rely on some, it's a tri-government issue, housing. So here's one example of a councillor in Cambridge saying this would help at least keep some people housed who can afford a rent and not destroy their unit or their property for the sake of development. And then you have federal leaders trying to get elected to the highest office in this land saying that housing is important also. So it is. Anything that can be done to move it forward. I love hearing about, love to see. As I said, I wish that study could come out a little bit quicker so that they could move more quickly. But, and again, Oakville and Kitchener do have a rental replacement bylaw for this very reason. Cambridge does not. They might have one. Looks like maybe in a year. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. This is 570 News Radio. In for Mike Farwell today, I am Larry Fedoruk. Thanks for having me on 570 News Radio. Always enjoy being here as a guest host. Coming up after 10 o'clock, we're going to be talking about National Service Dogs and the Easter egg hunt that is happening on Friday in support of that valuable service. And also next hour, the importance of buying Canadian and kind of what's been happening as to the Buy Canadian movement. It's actually considered successful. I mean, when you talk about Mike Myers wearing an elbows up T-shirt on SNL and then a Canadian Tire T-shirt on the goodbyes, to labels in stores, just everything in this sort of patriotic movement to shop Canadian. And so here's the thing, by the way, when on that, it's kind of related to that. When I did a social media post about guest hosting on 570 News Radio today, and I always do, so I put up the little notice that hope you can join me, and I'm guest hosting on Wednesday. And a friend of mine commented on there and said, gee, I hope you could mention Canadian Film Day, National Canadian Film Day, which is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. So it is today. And we actually had this on our news earlier on this morning on 570 News Radio, that it's National Canadian Film Day. And they have a website, but if you just, I don't know, it's too long. I'm not going to, you just Google it, right? Canadian National Film Day. And it comes up and you can go local. You can sort of type in, although the only city I noticed on there that had reference on the pull down menu was Waterloo. But anyway, there's like 2,000 films across Canada that you can see for free. If you have any movie service on your television, if you still watch television, try and watch a Canadian. The whole idea is to try and watch a Canadian film today. And there's a lot of, not only on television where you can watch them for free, but there's places around where you can go and watch Canadian film. And that I recommend that not just for today, but today. And this idea for this day has been around for, I don't know, about 10 years, a little more than 10 years, to have a National Film Day that encourages us watching Canadian film. And it's interesting because the I don't know that it's a theme this year, but a lot of people are talking about horror films, which is actually not my favorite genre of movies. I get frightened too easily. I've still never seen The Exorcist. I only watch it if friends there telling me when I can look, when is it safe to look. Can I look up now? But there's been a number of Canadian sort of horror slasher movies that are within that genre, pretty good. And they're available today as well. So anyway, it's there you go, Glenda. Thanks for reminding me. I mentioned it. I think it's important. It's part of the whole Canadian movement. National Canadian Film Day is today. Back in a moment. This is 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host Larry Fedoric.
Still to come on our program today at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday is Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter. We'll talk all things Jays. Coming up after 10:30 this morning, Canadian retailers are seeing a surge in this Buy Canadian plan that we have since the Donald Trump tariffs. And it's doing well. We're keeping more money in Canada and more money in local economies because of that. We'll talk to an expert on that just after 10:30 this morning. The National Service Dogs Easter Egg Hunt is coming up on Good Friday. A lot of fun. It's a family event and it's a fundraiser. Here to talk about that, Executive Director for National Service Dogs, Danielle Forbes, is with us. Danielle, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. We're all geared up for our big Easter egg hunt for dogs. So it's not just a regular Easter egg hunt. It's an Easter egg hunt for dogs.
There we go. And it's Friday. I know there's several cities across Canada, really, that are doing this. But let's talk about what, Kitchener, Guelph, especially?
Yes. So Good Friday, we will be in the KW area at Knollwood Park. Registration starts at 10. The hunt begins at 11. In Guelph, we're at Riverside Park, down by the carousel. Same timeline. Registration starts at 10 and the hunt begins at 11.
And I hate to ask, but rain or shine?
Yes, don't even jinx me that way. It goes rain or shine.
Well, I'm not trying to do that. If I had that power, I would guarantee you the sunshine. But they are forecasting perhaps a little inclement weather. But so what? It's a great family day. And
the thing we love about dog people, and what has been consistently true through the 27 years we've done this event, we've seen rain, we've seen snow, and we've seen tons of sunshine. But dog people take their dogs out in all kinds of weather. So they're usually not deterred by the weather. So we look forward to hosting several hundred families over those local venues. Now,
I want to find out more, a little bit more about National Service Dogs, but talk about the event itself now. It is a fundraiser. Yes. How exactly are you raising the funds? Do people kind of pay to play, so to speak?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we people pay registration. You can also raise donations. So you can go and do crowdfunding pages or collect offline donations. The more money you raise, the more eggs you get to collect. And the more eggs you collect, the greater the chance of winning more prizes. Everybody goes home with a swag bag with about $30 worth of goodies in it. And then there's extra prizes on top of that from our friends at Kong and Purina and Milkbone and Benny Bullies. We have a ton of great prizes to give away this year.
And when you find the eggs, some of the eggs will have these prize tokens inside.
That's right. They're little stickers, and we give out a card, and you put your stickers on the card, and then we swap out the prize stickers for the actual prizes at the end of the event. It's pretty cool. And each egg is stuffed with a Milkbone treat as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the dogs make out like bandits, just like the people.
Well, with the dogs, if there's a Milkbone, would the dogs have an advantage in finding the eggs over a person?
Well, speaking for my dogs, no. Okay. Some of our hound dogs that show up are very astute at sniffing out those eggs. But in truth, for both Guelph and Kitchener, we'll be putting over 5,000 eggs out in those parks. So they're not going to be too hard to find. There's going to be a lot of them.
Right. And again, you find the eggs, but also you can get donations. And at the end of the day, if you are up there on donations, you can maybe pick up some extra swag.
That's exactly right. So we have grand prizes for our top fundraisers. So the folks who raise the most money for us, that could be tickets to Ripley's Aquarium. We've got Ty Cat tickets. We had some Raptors tickets to give away for this event this year. There's tons of stuff that the community has donated, but certainly, yes, if you're fundraising for us, last year the event raised $75,000, and if the weather doesn't go too hard on us, we are in line this year to raise over 80.
Oh, wow. Terrific.
And all of that goes towards our service dog programs. We don't receive any government funding, so community fundraising is at the heart of what we do.
And I grew up in a time when we thought of service dogs as seeing eye dogs that helped people with vision issues. But now sort of the branding is service dogs. Talk about that, if you will, and how a service dog can be a number of things to an individual.
Sure. And actually within our industry, the umbrella term is assistance dog. And then under that umbrella is your guide dogs for the blind, which are very specific. They guide. And then service dogs fall into the rest of the category. So at National Service Dogs, we do autism service dogs, PTSD service dogs for veterans and first responders, but you can also get service dogs to help with diabetes alert, mobility challenges, hearing. So, but the overarching term is assistance dog, and then all the different types fall underneath that.
Yeah, it's amazing how versatile their services can be, and I know, sometimes in times of stress or uncertain times or an event, a disaster, sometimes they'll send in dogs just to be companions. I mean, this is the part of the services they can provide.
Well, at National Service Dogs, we have a program called Canine Assisted Interventions, and we match dogs with social workers and mental health professionals. So, for example, at the Child Witness Center here in KW, we have NSD Monet, and she helps children and youth prepare to go to court, to give testimony, to give witness statements to police. The dogs assist them as they navigate what can be a very scary justice situation. So we work in that space as well. We provide peer support facility dogs to the first responder community. Cambridge Memorial Hospital has one of our mental health facility dogs as part of their mental health team, specifically for staff. The dog, Ember, does not engage with patients. She's there just for the mental health of the staff to decompress after, as you can imagine, crisis is coming in to emerge and things like that. Having the dog really does help with anxiety and stress, and it can actually reduce the risk of long-term PTSD.
Isn't that amazing? I was on the website earlier this morning looking at it. Maybe give us the website and quickly again the details for Friday, especially Kitchener Guelph.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. So if you go to nsd.on.ca or National Service Dogs, you can register online in advance. It's $25 per family. If you register on the day, it's $30 per family, and all the instructions are there to set up a fundraising page or print off a pledge form to gather funds. As I said, registration and check-in starts at 10. You do need to check in because we need to give you your swag bag, your prize card, and your egg cartons. Everybody gets a set of egg cartons to pick up all their eggs in.
There you go.
So there between 10 and 11 to register and do check-in, and then we start at 11. The chaos starts, and it goes pretty quick. It's all usually over and done with by noon.
Isn't that a great day? I mean, and school's off, families around. It's just a great chance for families to get out and
we've been doing the event for 27 years, and it's a family tradition for many, many families. So we're grateful for the community that continues to come out and support the event and our programs.
All right, Danielle, thank you. And all the best for Friday. I know it's going to be a great day, regardless of what comes from the
Larry,
sky.
and we'll keep our fingers crossed for that decent weather to kind of at least join us in the morning.
You bet. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Larry. Bye now.
Danielle Forbes is executive director for the National Service Dogs, and just type that in, and you'll go to their website and you'll see the Easter egg hunts that are happening on Good Friday. As she said, registration at 10. All the fun starts at 11. Pre-register on their website. Probably help you out quite a bit. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. More in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. It's game day. Mike is busy prepping. If you can't make it to the Odd tonight for this crucial must-win playoff game against Windsor, catch all the action on 570 News Radio with Mike Farwell and Paul Fixter starting at 6:30. We couldn't get the federal debate moved up even further, not to overlap with the Kitchener Rangers game. So we tried. They didn't do it. So, but they did move the federal election debate up a couple hours. It was supposed to be at 8 o'clock tonight, French language debate at 8 o'clock in Montreal, but they moved it up to 6, not to overlap too much with the Montreal Canadiens game tonight, which is, as I mentioned earlier, they clinched a playoff spot, I think, was it Monday night? But now it's about position and opponents and all that stuff. So it's a big game, towards the end of the season. It's a big game. Now the Leafs have already, it's no big deal. The Leafs are already, we're going to play Ottawa, and it's probably going to be Sunday for the game 1 for the Battle of Ontario in the first round of the playoffs. But the Canadians still, so we can't let some little political debate get in the way of a Canadiens game, right? So, but the Rangers game is 6:30. So, pregame 6:30. There we go. Mike Farwell and Paul Fixter tonight. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike. So if you're just joining us, we were just talking about the Easter egg hunt. It is on Good Friday at 10. It's the annual event for National Service Dogs. So you're not only getting the family out in Kitchener and Guelph, and there's events in Hamilton and Calgary, and there's several. They do it across the country. There's, I don't know, good half dozen, maybe more cities that do this kind of thing for National Service Dogs, but Kitchener and Guelph are the two local ones. And it's on their website. But so it's 10 o'clock. I don't know, forecast, a little bit of rain on Friday, but it's not going to be cold. Because those cold days we had this winter, I live in a building, there's a lot of dog owners in my building, and they're mostly good dog owners. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad dog, just bad dog owners. Most of them in my building are good. But during the winter, you'd see especially the smaller dogs. And man, I'm not a dog owner. Had dogs as a kid, basically, and then not since, really, for whatever reason. But the point is, the dedication it takes to be a dog owner, because this dog has to go out for a walk a couple of times a day at least. And the owners, they put on the sweater and the booties. Some of the dogs have booties now. And I'm like, how do you even get your dog to put up with booties? And I realize they're important, not just because it's cold out, but because of all the salt that we use now in the winter time. It's just not good for the little doggy paws. And they take their little dogs out. I mean, so I don't think we'll need booties Friday. If anything, maybe a little bit of wet weather, but it could be one of those days, and I'm hoping it is, that it's kind of the Easter egg hunt takes place kind of between the raindrops, if you will, that we get some moments where it's not raining where you can get out. And as our guest moments ago, Danielle Forbes of the National Service Dogs, she said, dog owners are hardy. And so are the dogs. They have to go out all kinds of weather. So even if there's a little weather happening on Good Friday, get out and support this worthwhile cause and have some fun with the family. As Danielle said, it's a tradition for a lot of families, this particular Easter egg hunt. So get out Friday if you can. And again, go to the website for more information. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Get our traffic and weather on here, and back with more of the show in just a moment. I'm Larry Fedoric in for Mike Farwell. I'm going to treat tonight's debate like a sporting event that I'm not particularly interested in. It's in other words, here's what I do. It's like I'm kind of interested, but what I'll do is I'll watch the highlights tomorrow instead of, there's and it's French language tonight, and that's not my first language. So if I'm going to watch anything, I would tend to watch tomorrow. But it's interesting, and I don't know if you heard, but the Greens are now off the floor. They're not invited, no longer. Invitation rescinded to be part of the debate. And I forget all the criteria, but you have to have, I think, at least one elected member in Parliament, which the Greens do. But one of the other criteria is you have to have candidates, and I think it's over 90% of federal ridings. You have to have a candidate registered and running in that riding. And the Greens fell short of that. They say they had that, and then they couldn't quite get there. And then they pulled some candidates in certain ridings and so on and so forth. And some people changed their mind, didn't want to run. For whatever reason, they came in well under 90%. And there's 343 ridings, seats in the House of Commons. And it's kind of a shame in some ways that the Greens aren't going to be on the stage tonight or tomorrow. On the other hand, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think you have to have some guidelines and rules because, for example, here's one example. Both Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre have ridings around Ottawa that they're running in. And the riding that Pierre Poilievre is in has something like 80 people on the ballot. You ever seen one of those ballots, especially when you have a municipal election and there's a lot of people running for a position? You get this ballot that's just like, where's the person I'm going to vote for? Is it alphabetical? What's going on here? I can't even find the name. And that's what their ballot is going to look like. Most ridings are going to have 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 candidates running, over 80. And there is a group that is trying to change the first past the post system of elections that we have currently in Canada. Remember, that was going to be reformed, never did. And I wish we had a ranked ballot system, but we'll have a first past the post. In other words, most goals wins, most votes wins. And this group that is trying to change what they do is every election, they flood certain ridings with candidates to make their point. They were trying to do the same in Mark Carney's riding, but for some reason they couldn't do it. But in Pierre Poilievre's riding, there's going to be like 80 people on the ballot. Is that going to hurt his chances? I doubt it. But their point is that. So my point on that is, if you didn't have any rules for the debate, you would potentially have 80 people on stage during a federal leaders debate. You just couldn't do it. There had to be rules, and the Greens just didn't make it, just didn't make all the criteria. So there'll be one less on the stage tonight and tomorrow for federal debates. Hey, this Buy Canadian thing is working, according to sources. We'll talk to an expert about that next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoric.
It's Wednesday on the Mike Farwell Show, so we're going to have Blue Jay Hunter at 11 o'clock. Ian Hunter joining us to talk Jays. And don't forget, as we do every weekday at noon, between noon and 1, the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where it's all you, whatever you would like to talk about. That's coming up. Phones wide open between noon and 1 today. We are seeing a surge, according to Canadian retailers, we're seeing a surge in the Buy Canadian, this movement, this show of patriotism by Wallet, that started a few weeks ago once the tariffs were introduced and rescinded and reintroduced and so on and so forth. It's very confusing. But we've seen a surge in Buy Canadian. There's a wonderful article on the topic. The author of the article is a lecturer in the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. Melise Panetta joining us. Melise, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for having me.
I call it shopping elbows up.
I like it.
Which seems to be working, I guess, according to what you said.
Absolutely.
Some pretty big retailers.
Yeah, it is. And obviously that would be a big question on people's minds, right? Is this working? I mean, they're thinking to themselves, we're doing what we've been asked to do. We're going out and we're supporting our domestic economy. We're shopping for domestic products. Is this actually doing anything? And I think the early signs would say that it absolutely is. Now, what we have to do, and this is important, we have to look at a lot of different indicators, Larry, because as you just said, things are changing and they're changing really quickly. So we look at sales data, we look at how consumers are reacting, we look at how industry is reacting and the government support, et cetera. And I can tell you that if we look at all of them, they're all pointing in the same direction, which is, early days would say it's working and momentum continues to build.
It's interesting that when people first said this, I mean, in some ways we've always been saying this, but especially now, a lot of people went, buy Canadian. Well, how do I do that? How do I know? And we're actually filling some of those gaps.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most noticeable things I would say that I've seen anyway, in looking at this in the last 4 to 6 weeks. There has been a noticeable and significant impact and effort from stakeholders all over the place, all over Canada, to demystify country of origin. So government is supporting industry, consumers, all across the board. And if it's okay, I'll just comment a little on the consumers. So consumers they're taking their cues from retail and they are educating themselves. So when I say taking their cues from retail, I have to applaud retail because they were very, very quick to go into the stores and put the Canadian flag stickers everywhere. It helps consumers understand what products are domestically sourced when they don't know and they don't have the education. So it makes it easy for them to do that. And on top of that, they're now doing that in their loyalty apps. Like Loblaws, for example, they have a swap feature in their loyalty app. And that's basically letting consumers pick a domestic product in lieu of another one. So they're doing all that work, and it's wonderful, and it's really getting people to understand which products are domestically sourced. But what's really interesting to me, Larry, is what consumers are doing to educate themselves. They are searching on Google. By Canadian-related keyword search is up exponentially. They're going to sites like madeinca.ca that's seeing a big surge in traffic. They're talking to each other. They are using handles like hashtag Buy Canadian, hashtag Shop Local, et cetera. And they're using apps like OSCanada, Buy Beaver, MapleScan. Those are all apps that are new and that help people figure out which are the right domestically sourced alternatives for them.
I'm glad you mentioned the online, not only the social aspects of it, because I see it on social all the time, the hashtags and all that, but even somebody like Shopify will make it, or is trying to make it easier for us to buy Canadian.
Absolutely, they are. And if we look at Shopify specifically, they've come back to say that sales across Canadian-made products are spiking in all sectors. They have been specifically talked about one sector. They said Canadian-made mattresses was up like 213%. And that's just one example. But look at our biggest retail giants in the grocery space. Loblaws came out to say that their Canadian products are up 10%. That doesn't seem like a big number, but this was early days when people were still relatively trying to figure out which ones to buy. Sobeys is seeing a decline in U.S. sourced products. Chapman's, the ice cream brand, is up 10%. I mean, it's across the board, which is why I think we're comfortable to say that it's pointing to early signs that it's working.
You mentioned some pretty big brands there, big retailers, big brands. How is it for some of the smaller brands? Is it working as well?
We are seeing it across small brands, big brands, all industries. And that's great that you said that, because you're right. Sometimes we just look at what's hitting, the headline in the news. Well, no, it's across the board. And that just indicates that consumers are really interested in domestically sourced product, and they'll just go ahead and show you that by paying for it at the store.
Yeah, even alcohol.
Yes, even the alcohol.
Yeah.
Here in Ontario, most specifically. But one thing I wanted to share with you is, Marketers, they typically invest their resources against capitalizing on opportunities or mitigating threats, right? And they're going to do that for what's most meaningful. And we are seeing a large number of Canadian and international brands pivot in light of this movement. And that tells us a lot. That tells us that globally, industry believes that this movement will make an impact and it will be big. And so you're seeing brands in Canada really celebrate our heritage, and then American brands reacting. So in Canada, for example, Kicking Horse Coffee, they renamed the Americano. You're familiar with that type of coffee, Americano. They changed it to Canadiano, the Canadiano coffee. Black Diamond, instead of saying 100% Canadian cheese, they're putting up big billboards, 0% American cheese. And then Moosehead, I don't know if you've heard this one. Moosehead has a presidential pack, 1,961 beers that can be bought on a pallet. That's basically one beer for every day of a U.S. presidential term, which is really interesting work that they're doing. But it's all in the same light of supporting our domestically produced products and supporting Canadian.
I love the symbolism, but symbolic versus practical. I'm getting that you're saying it's also quite practical too, in a dollar and cents sense.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges we are still seeing, and we still, I don't think, have addressed in a meaningful way, but work has started in this space, is the price, right? Because we are still in a cost of living crisis, and we have been for a while. So people are kind of depleted, right? So if we have to get the cost of Canadian-made products to be competitive, not just short-term, not just one price reduction. I'm talking long-term. That's the best way to make sure that we give ourselves the best shot of making this movement stick for good.
And I love seeing Mike Myers wearing Canadian Tire T-shirts and things on SNL. I know it's all part of it. It's all part of the movement, if you will.
Well, it is. And I sort of put this under the headline of Canadians are helping Canadians choose Canadian. I mean, it's just simply put. You've got Mike Myers on SNL. You've got Michael Bublé at the Junos. The Canadian celebrities and influencers are using their platform to amplify the message. And that's really big. It's important and it's meaningful to the movement because people respect these individuals. And when they're out there talking about it, we're just helping fuel the movement more. And that, again, is important for our nationalistic agenda.
It really is. Great article, great conversation. I appreciate it. Melise Panetta, thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. Have a great day.
You as well. Melise Panetta is a lecturer in the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. Check out her article. Many of the things she talked about in this wonderful article, the overview of buying Canadian and the surge that retailers are seeing in Canadians. She said supporting Canadians, buying Canadian, supporting Canadian. This is the Mike Farwell Show. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Back in a moment.
What we have to do, and this is important, we have to look at a lot of different indicators. Things are changing, and they're changing really quickly. So we look at sales data, we look at how consumers are reacting, we look at how industry is reacting and the government support, et cetera. And I can tell you that if we look at all of them, they're all pointing in the same direction, which is early days would say it's working, and momentum continues to build.
I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell today, and that's part of my conversation I just had with Melise Panetta, lecturer in the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. We're talking about Buy Canadian. Wonderful article she's written, kind of overview and capsulizing the whole Buy Canadian movement down to, social media movements, things like Mike Myers promoting Canada on the goodbyes on SNL, and it's all part of it. It's all part of this flag waving and the patriotism. And we're trying to do it with our wallets. And we're seeing some surges in Canadian products. And I think we all do it. We all want to do it. And, it's tough, though. It's tough. And I have this discussion all the time with family members about what are you going to do? Are you not going to go to McDonald's? Like, is there a local place that you like that maybe is close in price points, but McDonald's in Canada employs like 90,000 people or something. I think it's up there. Same thing with Walmart. Like, what do you do? Do you not shop on Amazon now because you're trying to? Buy Canadian doesn't mean solely boycott America, because number one, it'd be really tough. And number two, again, the jobs. How many Canadians work at Walmart? How many Canadians work at Amazon? How many Canadians work at McDonald's? How many, now given a choice to buy Canadian or buy local, I think many people want to buy Canadian. And that was part of what our guest talked about, was making it easy and affordable for Canadians to be patriotic with their wallets. Is this Manny? Manny, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Larry, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. I have a question, because I'm like a little bit confused. So the past few years, it's kind of felt like or I guess maybe longer than a few years, it's kind of felt like we were led to believe that our flag was an oppressive, like a symbol of oppression, a symbol of racism, a symbol of bigotry. It was all kinds of things, but having pride in our nation didn't seem like that was okay. But like now it is, because of like Orange Man bad. Like, and like this push to buy local or buy Canadian, I'm not sure who wasn't before. And then now it's like the thing to do, or we shame each other for trying to save money because, affordability is completely out of control. So that's just like kind of where I'm at with it, Larry. I'm like, my head's spinning a bit on it. Like, I've always been proud to be Canadian. I have heritage from another place. Like, I'm second generation Canadian. And I would always take heat from my family about being proud to be Canadian. But then my government told me I shouldn't be for lots of reasons. And then now I'm supposed to be again because, another American, Mike Myers, says that, he's proud. He puts it out there. And I guess most recently, Neil Young, who's also an American, says that we should be proud to be Canadian. I just kind of don't really get it all. So I was hoping maybe you could give me some insight.
I'm not sure where you're coming from on the part that we were shamed to be Canadians, or that our flag was oppressive. I'm not sure I agree with you on that, or where that's coming from.
I mean, it was looked at as a symbol of oppression to other peoples, whether they be Indigenous, people of color, people of other sexual orientations. That's basically been the message for, it's greater than 5 years, almost certainly. And I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not making this up. I'm telling you, I guess maybe I'm just telling you how I feel. I could be totally wrong in my feelings towards it, but that's the sentiment that I've been kind of the underlying sentiment behind all of this messaging. It all culminated to, people call it the Freedom Convoy or whatever, the truckers protest that was at Ottawa. And it was like, if you flew a Canadian flag, you were a bigot, or you're a far right wing, whatever, whack job. Right. But then now, like, it's okay to wave the flag again.
All right, Manny, I'm going to go for a break here, but
man? Okay.
No,
okay, sorry. No problem.
I'm in break time. I'm break time here, but it's I don't think with the Freedom Convoy, I think people who flew the Confederate flag and other flags, they were the racists and bigots. And I don't know that this is it, Manny, but there's a difference between hiding behind the flag and waving it proudly. And so maybe it's that. Maybe that's the difference, that we see it differently. I don't know. And I'm also not a big fan of expats telling us to be proud to be Canadian, like Neil Young or Mike Myers. And I love them both, and I love them both for their talent and the fact that they're standing up. But you made a good living living in America, and that's where you live. And it's kind of tough to hear that from someone who's not here day to day. And I have no problem with them living elsewhere, and I'm proud that they're Canadian, but I don't know how much their voice lends to the movement, if you will. All right. I do have to get to a break. We'll be back in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. If you're just joining us this half hour, we're talking about the Buy Canadian movement, how it seems to be working from a retail point of view. And it's tough. It is tough. Because, as I said, who else is Canadian? People who work at McDonald's. You know who else is Canadian? People who work at Walmart. People who work at Amazon. Those are Canadians. You know who else is Canadian? A lot of importers and exporters who make their living by bringing goods in and sending them out. And the importers, especially, because the importers pay the tax on that. The tariff is a tax on importers, basically. So then how do they? And even if you want to make your furniture in Canada, you may have to import wood and screws and things from other countries, and you pay a tax on that. So now you can't even manufacture in Canada. So there's a line called isolationism has never been a practical policy. It's a famous line from a movie. You know what that movie is? It's Casablanca from 1942. Every time, because I watch that movie quite a bit, a few times a year. Love the movie. And when that line comes up, I always go, 1942, they were already kind of saying isolationism is not a practical policy, because it isn't. And especially post-World War II, it has not been. Because not everybody in the world makes everything. Not every country makes a cell phone. Not every country can grow coffee. Not every country makes cars and couches and on and on and on. And this is why we have trade and free trade. And it's been the system. And why the last time we had these massive tariffs in the U.S., it led to a depression, right? The famous story 100 years ago. Why throw the world topsy-turvy now into this complete mess is beyond a lot of people's ken. We just can't figure out why somebody would do that. Well, unless you say who the person is, and then you go, well, could be just crazy, because the isolationism, the is just not practical in the long run. All right. Hey, we'll switch to happier thoughts about the Blue Jays. It's Blue Jay Hunter. That's next on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedorик.
The Whiz Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey and the Duke.
This is Blue Jay Hunter on 570 News Radio. Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. It's the Wednesday feature called Blue Jay Hunter with creative writer, baseball expert, Blue Jays expert Ian Hunter joining us. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning, Larry. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Always nice to talk about this after a Blue Jays win, so that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And a team that I think they had one day in first place on Monday after they lost. So they're not that we should be looking at standings, 20 some odd games into the season, but better to be at the top than the bottom.
It is that. And there's this discussion we've always had since I remember the Blue Jays entering the league is we're in the American League East. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's still that year to year. We're in a tough division.
Oh, yeah. That's I talk to people about this every single year about how if only Major League Baseball would entertain division realignment and put the Blue Jays back in a division. I still was a little bit younger when I remember when the Jays and the Detroit Tigers were rivals. So I would love to eventually see those two back in the same division. But until then, yes, it is called the American League Beast for a reason, just because you've always got the perennial spenders like the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox are always pretty good spenders. You have the Tampa Bay Rays who make something out of nothing with their tiny payroll. and now the Baltimore Orioles are a good team again. So yeah, it's every year it seems to be probably the strongest division in baseball.
The Blue Jays have one more in this series against the Braves. It's at 1:00 today, by the way. It's an early start, I guess, travel day for Braves and all that stuff. But is this their first series at home since they re-signed Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? It
is, yeah. On Monday, the word of the signing came last week, but the official, putting on the new jersey and signing the official contract and having the press conference, that happened on Monday. And the Blue Jays were back at home on Monday, so they kind of tied that all in together.
Talk about that, if you will, because I still have trouble getting my head around that. And not that I'm not a fan of Vlad and all of that, but it's 14 years for $500 million. I guess that's the league we're in, right?
Yeah. Basically, we I spoke with Mike about this last week, and I also, too, am having trouble wrapping my head not only around that amount of term, 14 years, which is going to take Vlad to age 40, but the $500 million in one player when you have a team payroll this year, the Blue Jays I think they're around $270 million. So they're paying their entire team half of Vladdy's salary, what it's going to be eventually. But yeah, as you alluded to, that's kind of the cost of doing business these days. We saw Juan Soto signed to a $785 million contract last offseason, and then the offseason prior, Shohei Ohtani signed for about $700 million. So this is kind of the way that baseball is going, because it's not a salary cap league. You can spend as much as you want. And if there are owners that are motivated and they really want this type of player, especially a guy who's this young, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is only 26 years old. So he's in the prime of his career. I think the Blue Jays kind of realized, hey, we're going to have to pay up to keep this guy, because they've had a lot of unfruitful attempts at signing free agents the last few years. And this is a guy who wants to stay in Toronto, whose identity is tied to this organization. And now by signing him for $500 million, the Blue Jays' identity is tied to Vlad too. So it's kind of a relationship there.
Well, and you're certainly touching on something I've been thinking, is that this is the cost of signing Vlad, but the cost of not signing him, I mean, I'm sure that's considered. It's just, if you let him slip away, what would be the cost to the brand and the franchise?
Yeah, that's
not just on the field, but in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing that's not really figured into this calculus is, if you don't have a tent-pole player like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is the face of your franchise? And, I don't think one player is going to sell tickets. I think a contending team always sells tickets. But, he's going to sell merchandise. He's going to create interest for the Toronto Blue Jays for the foreseeable future. So I think the Blue Jays front office kind of figured that into the equation. That's why you're willing to kind of go above and beyond where, we don't know what the initial offer was. I imagine there was a bit of a gap there. Maybe they offered somewhere in the $400 million range initially to Vlad. But, the marketing potential, the amount of eyeballs that you get on your team, I think that's definitely factored into the cost as well.
And any team that has a star of this magnitude and that kind of salary, which in itself sort of drives the stardom a bit, but there usually is a 1A and a 1B, and there's got to be a couple other players there that are maybe not as big stars, but are right up there. It has to be.
Sure. I mean, the next kind of inevitable conversation we're going to have is about Bo Bichette, who's kind of came up at the same time with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They've had a similar career trajectory. He is going to be potentially a free agent at the end of this year. So this is the next conversation the Blue Jays are going to be having, is whether they want to extend a player like him. They signed Anthony Santander to a 5-year contract this past offseason. But the other thing, too, is that suddenly Vladdy is a recruitment tool, right? Like he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. So any potential free agent, if they're wondering what kind of situation am I getting into, who am I going to be playing with? Well, your answer is right there. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to, for lack of a better term, captain this franchise for the foreseeable future.
This is Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter, and we'll have more in a moment on 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell today, and Wednesdays at this time, it's Blue Jay Hunter with Ian Hunter. And Ian, we were talking about Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette, and I want to move into the front office for a question, but first we have Bob on the line who wants to talk a little Blue Jays as well. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Larry.
Morning, Bob.
Morning. Hi, Ian.
What's your question, Bob?
So maybe I have had the same deal as Larry. Does that mean that Ross Atkins and Shapiro are going to be extended too? Because actually I think they've done a pretty good job, really.
Yeah, the funny thing is the terms of both Mark and Ross's contracts aren't, we don't know them 100%, but I believe either Mark's contract is up at the end of this year and Ross's is up at the end of next year. So there's been no announcement of an extension or anything, but I would have to assume the fact that they got this deal done for Vlad, I would assume that maybe an extension for those two guys is on the horizon, but that may depend on what happens with the team this year.
Because really they had the most success since Gillick.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their overall record, like they made the playoffs 3 out of the last 5 years. The one thing, it's like the Leafs, right? They need to win a playoff game and a playoff series to kind of put their stamp on this regime. But for the most part, this team, since they've taken over this team, once they made that rebuild and shifted in 2020, it's been a competitive team most years.
Oh, both of you have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, that pretty much was my question, was Shapiro and his deal, which you've pretty much answered. But I get it. I get what you're saying, and I get you have to rebuild, and it's especially true, I think, in baseball. But I don't know. How about just winning? Like, if you're not winning, then sorry, who's the next guy? Sometimes I look at it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought probably the last 2 off seasons, I thought for sure there was going to be some sort of change in the front office. I didn't think a manager change really made sense because they had already done that when they fired Charlie Montoyo a few years ago. But when you fall flat on your face in the playoffs and it was a bad look all around 2 years ago, I thought, well, Ross Atkins he might be out the door, but the fact that he's still here, and they've made all these, like, from a president's perspective, Mark Shapiro has spearheaded these renovations at Rogers Center, completely revamped that stadium. To me, it doesn't really make sense to kind of pull the rug out from under him unless this season goes incredibly sideways. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next year or so, I guess.
The company we're working for is called Rogers Sports and Media. So
yeah,
you got to think there's dedication to that team,
emphasis on the sports. Yeah. Well, and I mean the MLSE thing too, right? Like Rogers has a lot of stake in these sports, so they want to see these teams succeed.
For sure. And if they're still playing in September, or October, well, September at least. Terry, go ahead. Terry, you have a question?
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. Ian, I know, this isn't going to be my question, but I thought I'd make a comment. I think the best divisions usually is reciprocal. I mean, you can't say the AL East is the best right now. I mean, look over in the NL West. I mean, over the last many years, I think that's been probably the best division in baseball. But,
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I know you might be too young to remember this, but you might have come across it. Years ago, the old Blue Jays, I know it's not the same ownership, they had a rule on signing free agents. They weren't going to sign anybody more than 3 years because they got burned with Bill Cottle back in the 80s. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
So I know now, because the game has changed so much, they've gone to these longer-term contracts. I mean, even George Springer, he signed for 5 years. Is that correct?
6 years. Yeah, next year's his last year, yeah.
But I know that the Jays are having. I know they just signed Vlad Guerrero, but that was more of their own. It wasn't a free agent signing per se.
Mm-hmm.
But many teams, I know you mentioned Tampa Bay Rays, they've done it the Moneyball way. Like they've built through their farm system. When a player gets to their 7th year, they'll trade them and get more farm hands, and build through there. Like it's worked for Tampa. Oakland did that for many years. Kansas City, actually, they hit the jackpot 10 years ago, went to back-to-back World Series doing that. So do you think in I know this is just probably an opinion-based. Do you think that would be a good way to go since the Jays struggled to sign big-name free agents? I mean, they got George Springer, but I don't know if he's like a grand name. He's a good player, mind you, but would they be more I don't know, advantageous might not be the word, but they'd be better suited to do that, build through their farm system, as opposed to go out and try to sign free agents, which they're struggling to get? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a little apprehensive to do that because we saw that with the JP Ricciardi era of the 2000s Blue Jays, where they tried to bring that Moneyball philosophy over to Toronto, trying to make something out of nothing, and it didn't really work that well. I guess one fault I'll say about this regime is they haven't drafted and developed all that well. You haven't seen a ton of guys come up from the minor leagues and contribute at the big league level. They have spent a ton of money. I'll give them credit, but there haven't been those young superstar position players aside from Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who have been fixtures on this team. So I think you're not going to, I mean, you could outspend the Yankees. You can outspend the Red Sox, but I think the Blue Jays moving forward, it's going to kind of have to be a little bit of both. They're going to have to draft and develop, but they're also, like right now, they're a top 5 payroll team. And I think that's an advantage that they do have over teams like the Baltimore Orioles, for example, who aren't spending a ton of money, and neither are the Tampa Bay Rays. The Blue Jays can flex their financial muscle and sign guys, hopefully, in the future.
Well, you have the attention, you have the stadium, you have the ownership, the money. Then you don't necessarily play Moneyball. People who do Moneyball generally, that's what they have to do to survive.
Yeah, that's precisely it. And I think that's why it didn't work in Toronto with the Ricciardi era, because they built that in, like you said, in Oakland. They only had a shoestring budget. That's all they had to do to survive. You couldn't translate that over to the American League East when you've got the Yankees and Red Sox spending $200+ million and occupying a playoff spot every single year. You have to keep up with the Joneses at that point.
By the way, in the movie Moneyball, you know what character doesn't come off that well, in my opinion?
Oh, are you going to say Mark Shapiro?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually watched I saw Mark Shapiro comment about that I saw something on social media last week about that. And yeah, he doesn't, and I remember he was saying in this interview that in reality, that's not exactly how the trade went either. They kind of took some liberties, creative liberties in the film. But yeah, it's kind of funny to go back and realize, oh yeah, that was Mark Shapiro when he was with the Cleveland Guardians.
There was, yeah. And anyway, enjoyed it a lot. Ian Hunter on Blue Jay Hunter. Ian, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Larry. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
You bet. That's been Blue Jay Hunter. This is the Mike Farwell Show. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Back in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Thanks again to Ian Hunter and Blue Jay Hunter. Always enjoy talking Blue Jays. I've told the story before. I'm not going to do it again. I'll just say Game 6, Joe Carter. I was there with my son, who's now an adult, and one of the great memories. I mean, it's one of the great ends to a World Series in the history of baseball, never mind. And to actually be there. And my son still has the ticket stubs. And about 5 years ago, I found, for a pretty good deal, a signed, Joe Carter signed jersey, Blue Jay jersey, that I got for, now he's since had it mounted and done beautifully and everything, part of his collection. But yeah, quite the memories. It's next to the, the framed little ticket stubs and all that kind of stuff. So Don't need. I mean, I know that there's been generations of baseball since then, but it's still one of the great memories of all time. Brought to you by the Toronto Blue Jays and baseball. So, still to come on the program. Don't forget, noon to 1. It's our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where we throw the phones totally open to you for whatever's on your mind. Whether it's a frown or a smile, a rant or a rave, whatever you want, it's coming up. And next, we're going to talk to the Cambridge Shelter Corporation about their Walk to Change 2025. That's next on 570 News Radio. And generally, we get your calls on where we can during the show, but between noon and 1, it's all about you and your telephone calls. It's 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, still to come on the Mike Farwell Show. Right now on the program, the Bridges Shelter wants to increase some student involvement in something called Walk to Change. Walk to Change 2025. The CEO of Cambridge Shelter Corporation is Wayne Paddock, who joins us now. Good morning, Wayne. I'm not hearing you.
Unmute. Thanks, Larry, for having me.
All right. All right. And the thing I always forget on Zoom is I always forget to turn on the camera, which I've done today. And now our mics are on and our cameras are on, and here we are. Tell me about this, for the initiative, first of all, the Walk to Change.
Sure. So the Cambridge Shelter's been doing a walk fundraiser for several years now. It's a way to engage the community in not only raising funds, but raising awareness around this crisis we have in our community, which is called homelessness. So it's been going on for quite a few years. We did take a pause during COVID. Obviously, a lot of our fundraising initiatives had to stop, and now we've kind of changed how we're delivering some of these events, and now we're doing the virtual walk as a way to include more people, and they can get involved when it's convenient for them, not on a certain day or time.
Yeah, and that's the first thing I noticed was people think Walk to Change is a walkathon on a Saturday morning, and that's it, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's for the month of April, and we've been promoting it on our Facebook page and our socials for a couple months now to get involved. And last year we raised just over $7,000 with the walk, and we're aiming for a little bit over 10,000 this year.
And how do you actually raise the funds? People have to walk and get donations. They solicit donations and then pass them on, or?
Yeah, that's correct. So people would then share on their socials or with their networks that they're doing this walk to support the shelter, and then again raise those funds through our Canada Helps platform, and then the funds come straight to the shelter.
So talk to me about the importance of student involvement. That's what we're talking about, getting more students involved.
Yeah. So since I've been in this position for almost 3 years now, I've really made an effort to get out and connect with our high schools. I think it's important that our students know that there is a crisis going on in their community with homelessness, and that they have the power to make change. So in some of that, we had the idea of creating a bit of a challenge with the high schools for raising money, but also raising awareness for this homelessness problem that we have in our community. So we are seeing good uptick. We are seeing classes pitting themselves against their colleagues at other schools with a pizza party from Domino's as kind of a carrot to dangle. So yeah, it's going really well.
Now, I'm stereotyping here, and I apologize, but do students know anything that's not on their phone itself? Do you get
Larry, I've been out to a few schools, and no, they're not aware, but they're sponges for information. And I remember I've left some classrooms very optimistic about our future, that these kids really want to learn and be a part of the solution in ending this crisis. And the one thing I really noticed was that their phones are down. And I know teachers will tell them not to be on their phones when there's a guest in the room, but they are truly attentive when I'm talking, which I find very rewarding. And again, it's a bright spot for our future that I think we're going to be in good hands.
And they are the future, not to be cliche, but I think that's part of your idea of getting student involvement is down the road. These are the people, decision makers of our communities.
There absolutely are future politicians and policymakers and lawyers and advocates, whatever they're going to get into, right? It's important that they know that there is a problem with affordable housing and homelessness in their community, and that even at their young age they can be a part of that, and using their technology to their advantage, they can be a part of that solution.
Can you speak to the Bridges shelter itself and
Absolutely. So
challenges you have there?
Yeah, for sure. So we're an 80-bed men's shelter. We have really shifted our focus in the last few years to become more of a housing organization. We have gone from 2 housing workers to almost 12, and their prime responsibility is getting folks moved out of homelessness. We've already housed 18 this year and housed 97 last year. And our goal is to meet with individuals who come into homelessness, get them connected with a housing worker, figure out what they need to be housed, in an effort to get into their next and hopefully last permanent housing situation.
And we talk about this often, and kudos to the work you've done. But do you see it decreasing, or it just keeps coming year after year?
Larry, what we're seeing now is we're seeing the demographic change. 25 years ago, when the shelter system, when we got started as Bridges, it was a lot of young males that were in homelessness. And now with the rising costs and with inflation and with the cost of housing, we're seeing a lot of seniors now age into housing, or into homelessness, which is very truly sad. We just had an 81-year-old in the last year come into homelessness for the first time. So as our seniors potentially lose a loved partner, they can no longer afford housing on their own, and they're seeing themselves desperate, not being able to make it on their own with their support finances, and they're coming into homelessness. So at this point, I don't see an end in sight unless we can truly build the number of affordable housing units that we need to be able to support these folks.
Before we go, let's talk again about Walk to Change 2025. Getting students involved. Students have been pretty good in the past in like the sleep out events and those kinds of things. And you want to get them involved in this. How would they do that?
So, they can reach out to us through our socials. I know that's a big thing for our youth is using the social media platforms, but also on our website at cambridgesheltercorp.ca. They can call us directly through the website, get involved, or shoot me an email at wpaddock@cambridgesheltercorp.ca. Would love to have them involved.
And again, to emphasize, it's not a one-day thing. It's not a weekend. It's a month of April thing, and Walk to Change 2025 ongoing. So you can kind of pick and choose your challenges and set up your parameters as you want to do this.
And even if you missed the beginning of the month, you still got a good couple weeks left to help raise some funds. And if you raise $10 or $20, is still better than zero. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Wayne, thank you for your time and for what you do, and all the best, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Wayne Paddock is CEO of Cambridge Shelter Corporation. If you want to find them on social or find them online and get involved in this Walk to Change 2025. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell. Back in a moment on 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell. Just joining us for a very nice conversation with Wayne Paddock, CEO of Cambridge Shelter Corporation. Again, check them out for their Walk to Change 2025. I love this idea of their Walk to Change. They've been doing it for a few years, where it's not a one-day walkathon, on a Saturday or Sunday morning or any of that kind of thing. It's an all-month thing where you can set up an event, and especially, as they said this year, they're asking students to get involved, young people to get involved. And where students can challenge another school, another class at a school, so on and so forth. And there's a Domino's pizza party at the end for incentive, but they can raise funds there, and it's terrific. So there's another community thing that you can get involved in. Earlier on in the show, I'll mention again too, we had Danielle Forbes on from National Service Dogs. And just a reminder about that, because their annual Easter egg hunt to raise funds for National Service Dogs is on Good Friday in Kitchener and in Guelph. So you can find out the locations and times by visiting National Service Dogs, finding out what they are. Say visit, search. It's just simpler that way. So you can do that and find out about the events. Rain or Shine event for the Easter egg hunt in the park on Good Friday. So there's another good community event. Yeah, it always, I should say always, most of the time kind of sneaks up on me, even if it's later in the year. Easter is Good Friday, this Friday, and then Easter Sunday, and one shopping day in between, because Good Friday is like Christmas Day, even though we have this multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. Things are closed on Good Friday and Christmas Day. It's just the way it's always been, right? So we still, as a retail observation, those are the observance, I guess. Those are the 2 days, right? We're like, it's closed. And Easter Sunday, now mind you, there are still some things open Easter Sunday. I know that I've noticed the signs up around stores around me have closed Good Friday, closed Easter Sunday. So those are the days. And that's Saturday. It's almost like a Christmas Day that Saturday to get out and buy some things and buy Canadian if you do. And then Easter Monday, I think Easter Monday is the Postal Service still get Easter Monday off. I think they do. I know a lot of banks are closed on Easter Monday as well. But the whole thing is that once we get through this Easter weekend or long weekend, the election is a week away. Like, I know this is was it 37 days is the minimum for a campaign, for a federal campaign, and 51 is the max. And when Carney asked for the writ to be dropped, that day was the Sunday. From that day till April 28th was 37 days. If you include the day the writ was dropped and the 28th inclusive on either end, it's exactly 37 days. So the minimum. But anyway, even at the minimum, what I'm saying is it just suddenly went by to me. A week into the election campaign, I think I was guest hosting for Mike, and I was already telling you I'm burnt out. It's a week into the election, and I have kind of tempered my involvement, I guess, as a voter in involvement in the day-to-day. Like, I read the platforms and I pretty much understand where everybody's at. I think I have pretty good knowledge of it. So I vote as I'm not a low information voter. I'm a high information voter. At least I'd like to be. But I kind of tempered my absorption of information, I guess, my intake. Because a weekend, I was just burnt out. Not maybe on the election, but just on politics. So the amount of politics that led up to everything, and suddenly an election where we really have to concentrate on it, was just too much. And now, maybe because of that, here we are, a long weekend away from being a week away, on our election. And I'm like, wow, it's here already. It's here already. I mean, I got the voter card in the mail. Anybody else get this really nicely done big printout, French and English on election details, how to vote, and the whole pamphlet? Did you get one of those? I just got one of those, and it was interesting too, because it came a little late. Like, a lot of the things was like, here's how you can vote by mail. Here's if you're not in your riding. Here's all these things. And I'm like, a lot of these, this would have been handy to have in the mail like 2 weeks ago. I just got it. I got it actually after I got my election card. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a very colorful piece. And I'll go to my recycling and get it if you want me to look at it again, because it went pretty much straight in there. I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, okay. I got my voter card. I know where I'm voting. It's just up the block. I'm done. I'm good. All right. So, but it's interesting too, because we talked earlier on about the Greens having their invitation to the debate rescinded because they didn't meet the requirements. for being in a federal debate, and yet the Green Party co-leader saying that he expects to be on the stage tonight. So I don't know what last minute pardon he is seeking from the elections committee that's calling the debate. I don't hear it from anywhere else but him saying he expects to be on the stage tonight. I fully expect that he will not. And for the majority of Canadians, the bigger interest will be the English language tomorrow, which I hear everybody saying, and maybe we can discuss this more in the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, but I hear a lot of people saying how important these debates are. And I don't think they are. I mean, they weren't provincially. They generally aren't nationally in the U.S., the debates themselves. We're interested, and they're a big event, and the news is all over it, as they should be. And then we hear the clips and the highlights. But overall, I don't know how important they are to our own process. It's good to have them, but I don't know, and especially this late in the campaign, basically a long weekend away from a week before the vote, that kind of thing. That's when it's happening. It's 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Back in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell on Wednesday, April 16th. Tomorrow's Holy Thursday and it's Good Friday. I believe it was called Holy Saturday as well, if I'm remembering my Christian Catholic upbringing. Then Easter Sunday, and then Easter Monday. But and I've mentioned this before, so probably even when I've guest hosted here, but nevertheless, my mom was pretty strict on that when I was a little kid. And as a little kid, I really had trouble wrapping my head around things because on the Thursday, the Friday, and the Saturday we weren't like I was an only child for many years before my brother came along. But so as a little kid, it's I'm not allowed to watch TV. I'm not really allowed to play or read comic books or go outside and run around and play or ride my bike on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday because Jesus is dead. And we shouldn't be out laughing and having fun. I'm not making this up. This is like, I want to talk about the trauma of strict religious upbringing. It was traumatic, man. And I couldn't understand because 3 months ago, he was just born and we had a good time and presence. And now 3 months later, he's dead. I don't get it. So, the concept of this is an anniversary or a celebration of the date, not the thing itself. And oh man. And to this day, like tomorrow will be Holy Thursday, and I will watch TV and read a comic book, perhaps even, but I'll feel bad about it. It never ends. Right? I think about it, even though I go, wow, gee, maybe I should watch King of Kings instead of watching a Seth Rogen comedy on Holy Thursday. It's like, oh my gosh. So, and we didn't really do for years. We really didn't do a lot of Easter eggs and stuff like that. But Sunday was always a good time. Sunday was always family. And we always had Easter baskets and things like that. There's some candy. It wasn't, candy free or anything. It was pretty good. We had some treats, but it's in your formative years, that 0 to 3 and 3 to 6, a lot of the stuff that happens that you manage somehow to carry with you the rest of your life is just, it's incredible. That's why there's therapists. That's why there's people who are going to listen to you talk for, I got about a minute here, George. I got about a minute here. Do you want to go on or do you want to wait for the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour?
I'll make it quick, Larry. I'm usually very quick.
Okay.
I'm like you. That was the way I was raised. I couldn't have fun. We had to take the day serious. Don't feel too bad. That's what our parents knew. Now I enjoy the days, but I also do remember, of course, that Christ died for us. But I don't let it convict me or make me feel bad.
There you go. And George, thank you for the call. And so do I. I mean, I do too, but I'm just saying that I there's not an Easter goes by that I don't think about those times as a little kid having to what are you doing, Larry?
Oh, just reading the encyclopedia, Mom.
And there's a comic book inside. Because you just weren't allowed. You had to kind of, I call it, you had to be sad. You didn't have to be sad. You had to be respectful, which kind of involved a sad moment. But it's interesting. Time marches on. It does. The 12 o'clock Talkback Hour is next here on 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning
Please
up
talk
your
back.
room.
It's 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Larry in for Mike. What are you having in mind today? 519-570-2545. 1-800-570-5715 or star 570 on your cell. Talk about anything you want. What's on your mind today? Of course, Mike and Paul, Mike Farwell, Paul Fixter, on tonight. If you're not going to the Odd, catch all the action on the Rangers must-win game tonight, starting at 6:30 with the pregame here on 570 News Radio. Mike and Paul, well prepared. They'll play net if they have to. They'll go in. I mean, it's boy, you hate to be in this position, huh? You hate to be down 3-0. I mean, in round one, being up, and you're just like, yeah, forget about it. They don't have a chance. But when you're down 3-0, it's like, we got a chance. We got a chance, right? It's 4. You need 4 to move on, not 3. So I just hope it's a great game, and I hope they're, I hate to, the cliche, one game at a time. It's a cliche for a reason, right? Because you win tonight, and then you manage another win, and suddenly it's not such a runaway, is it? So, and I forget, was it Paul Fixter last week or last time I heard him on the other coach's show? Was I don't remember. I don't remember who to credit on this thing, but you win a face-off, you win a shift, you win a 10 minutes, you win the next 10 minutes, you win a period, you win the next. It's like at some point you're down to that. You're down to just winning these increments of a game, and at the end, hopefully that means you won the game. So it is down to that. It is down to that. Still pretty amused about the federal leaders debate. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that federal leaders debate moved up to 6 p.m. so it doesn't overlap too much with the Habs game. Because the Habs game starts at 7, the debate would have been at 8. So it's not so much an overlap. It's like, well, by 8 o'clock, if you're really into this Habs game, what are the chances you'll even go to the debate? This way, the debate starts at 6, and it's French language. So if you're a fan, you're gonna be watching that, and you might it's supposed to go 2 hours, but I'm like, that feels long to me for a debate. It really does. By 7 o'clock, you may go, well, okay, I got the gist of them, which we probably have already. That's why, as I said earlier, people who place a great importance on the debate tonight, I'm like, and tomorrow, I'm like, I don't know. We've seen nothing but these people talk about their platforms and policies and strengths and the other person's weaknesses. We've seen that for the last almost 30 days. What is the difference tonight when them just facing each other in a room together? I don't know. The one thing, because I have a podcast, it's called Later That Same Life, and it's a different topic every week. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago called Canada Votes, and I talked about the election campaign, and some of the little things that I've noticed. This is not relevant to policy, but I did notice this, and it's a little thing that drives me crazy because little things do. They have higher podiums this time around. Have you noticed this? I didn't notice this during the provincial election or the last provincial or the last federal, but this federal, and you especially note because they travel with their own podiums. That's why it's basically Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, because Jagmeet Singh rarely has a podium because those cost a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of money compared to the Liberals and the Conservatives. They just don't. So they don't travel with their own podiums like the Liberals and Conservatives do. But the Liberals and Conservatives who travel with their own podium, the podium used to be to about chest level, like lower chest level, as a typical podium would be when you go to see a speech or a lecturer. They're standing often at a dais or a podium that's about that high. And now it's almost at shoulder height. Almost at shoulder height. And you know why? Because they're on TV. Because TV news, that's what they do now. They point a camera.
Let's go live now to leader Mark Carney.
And then they just sit there with that leader for 20 minutes. Oh, riveting television. But anyway, they sit there and they just focus on, and Poilievre, Carney, and they blather on about their stuff. And then there's questions, and there's never any good questions. Really, there's not. I'm sorry. And so if they're on TV that long, when the podium is down here, then the camera zooms in for a medium shot, and all that money they spent on the podium in their colors of red or blue with their slogans and their message, it's not on TV. If you move the camera up to almost chin high, shoulder high, then the message of, Poilievre or Carney or whatever it says on their podium there in red or blue, it's on TV. And I'm like, yeah, but now both Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney, to me, look like they're 5'3" trying to peek over a wall. That's what it looks like. They look, it doesn't look right. To me, I would skip the messaging that's going to be on TV there. I don't know how much that messaging really does, as opposed to having a reasonable candidate say reasonable things that I could listen to, that I'd be interested in, as opposed to a message that's now across your shoulders just so you can be on TV, so they can't zoom out of the shot. They can't zoom your message out of the shot. It's there. And I don't know, again, a little thing, but it drives me nuts because there are campaign managers whose raison d'etre is this kind of stuff. Everything. You're not wearing a tie. Yes, you're wearing a tie. You're wearing a no tie, no jacket, and roll up your sleeves. You get rid of the glasses, move the podium up, put people behind you in hard hats and reflective vests because you're doing a working man. This is all planned to a T. It's frustrating. We'll take a call before the break. Here's Mark. Excuse me, Mark. Go ahead.
Hi, Larry. Just to correct you, you were talking about the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes, sir.
Playing tonight. Last I heard, Larry, is they need a point to make the playoffs.
See, I read somewhere they clinched on Monday, but my mistake. I'll go with your thing because you'd probably know more than I. But so they need a point, huh?
They need a point, or a win would absolutely do it, but they need 1 point to make it in.
Wow. So that's a tie into overtime. That's a 1 point, even if they do that.
Exactly. So it's going to be, I'll watch the game tonight, Larry. It's on TSN, and it'll be a fun watch.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for clearing that up, man. I appreciate it. It is the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. More of your calls in a moment. 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell, 12 o'clock Talkback Hour every weekday at this time on Mike Farwell's show, where it's all about you, your thoughts, your opinions, your rants, your raves, your beefs or bouquets. When I was a kid, my local radio station had a segment called Beefs or Bouquets. I always thought that I'd still love to, maybe one day if I have my own show again, I'll have a segment called Beefs and Bouquets. You never know. Evan, thanks for holding. Evan, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Larry, how are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you?
Not too bad. First and foremost, I want to say good luck to the Rangers tonight. I think it's going to be a quite the tight one there with them being 0-3 to start this series. But I really do think that they can come back tonight with a win to push Game 5. And for the first goal, I want to say Luca Romano to score the first Rangers goal. Also, for all the politics going around, people have been asking me who I'm voting for, and that's just, you don't ask that because that's really personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just tell them, that's a very personal topic, and I don't really like to talk about it.
That's not a bad answer, Evan. Thanks for the call, man. I mean, I've often said that, it's a secret ballot for a reason, and you can have conversations about how you feel, which might indicate who you probably would be voting for, but otherwise it's like none of your beeswax. Ooh, sorry, didn't mean to use the strong language. Andre, go ahead. Andre, you're on 570 News Radio.
Well, good afternoon. And if I don't hear you tonight, you have a great day, Larry.
All right.
This morning, yes. I still want to talk about hockey, of course, and about what you were talking about, the debate. I really feel that it's important to have a debate so we can understand the both characters, because we hear a lot of drama from Carney. Myself, okay, I don't agree with Evans on that one, but I do believe that asking different people opinion, it becomes a fact. There's too many people in Canada to become a fact, but I think in talking just like 570 News or whatever other shows is so important so we can understand the thread and needle where it's going, and then you get to choose at the end. That's just my opinion. I think that's where they can defend themselves on the table. The size doesn't matter because the camera can make them look bigger, like Sylvester Stallone, right?
Yeah, I guess.
And then, for the hockey, well, I really hope that the team should not be named for respect of Mike. They're there because, I would never get my heart hurt from Toronto because of that reason. But I do believe, like one of the callers said, that this year, not the caller, but on the news this morning, Czechoslovakia, the lady said that she believes that Toronto can make it. I believe it too, because finally they got the forward, they got the defense, they got the goalie, they got everything going. I really think they could do it. But if Montreal is in there, watch out, because the heart, the fans that they have over there is just crazy. You can never eliminate that since 1912. Yep. And I would really like for them to be in for sure. So it's going to be a big attention. But to me, Mike, don't worry, because I'll still watch the Kitchener Rangers tonight. One last point, Larry. I would like to see Mike Farwell, because the commercial says Mike Farwell will keep you out of jail. So that reminds me of the black and white strips. I would like to see Mike as a referee one day, since he talks so much about the plays. But Larry, you take care, and I can't wait to hear from you. All right,
Andre. Thanks for the call, man. Let's go to Steve. Steve, go ahead. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Hey, Larry, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Good, brother. Thanks. You're doing a great job. I just had a quick rebuttal. This Manny guy calls in. He doesn't call when Mike's doing the show anymore, because Mike always knocks down his science denial and his Facebook zombieism there. But, I know exactly what he was talking about as soon as he started talking. He's talking about how that 10% of the truckers and all these fringe, like I said, Facebook zombies took our Canada flag hostage and used it as a prop for their derpyism. And like he even called in on the afternoon show there that Rob Snow's show talking crap about Mike back in the day. He's a moron. Anyways, and I just hope that Manny gets his kids vaccinated against measles, because, these guys are all bringing it back. And I had one quick question for you, brother. Have you noticed how these Pierre Poilievre flags, if you see these people with these Pierre Poilievre flags, how they look a hell of a lot like those Donald Trump flags down south? Yeah. Anyways, thanks, Larry. Have a good one, brother.
There is a theme there, man. Thank you so much. I'm going to squeeze Kyle in. I don't want to make Kyle wait during a whole break here. So, Kyle, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm just going to get on this Trump and this Pierre Poilievre thing. This whole analogy of comparing the two is ridiculous now. This is getting to a point where it's a joke. Like, should I start comparing the Liberal Party to Xi Jinping of China here and keep saying that they're like the Communist Party? Like, we're two totally different countries with two totally different governments. Canada is still a very left-wing country compared to the rest. And the other thing I want to say about, Andre, you said that, Montreal's been around since 1912. As a Montreal Canadiens fan, they've been around since 1909, actually. And the other thing I want to say is I would never spend $500 million on Vladdy. I would have used that money and bought other players, but that's just me. I mean, I don't want to be having a player that's $500 million and 3 years later he tanks, and then we go nowhere again, and then we're just into the same chaos. That's all I got to say. Thanks, man. Have a great day.
Hey, Kyle, that was a great call. You packed a lot in there, got a lot in. Back in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Let's get to more of your calls. Here's Terry. Terry, go ahead.
Hey, hi, Larry. I'm back again. Montreal can still lose tonight and get in if Columbus also loses tomorrow night. So it's not all lost with a loss tonight. If they do get a point, they do clinch, though. But the thing about, I was going to make this comment about Pierre Poilievre. He doesn't seem to be able to make adjustments. I think they planned their campaign based on the previous leader of the Liberal Party, which was Justin Trudeau. So when the other guy came in, just 2 weeks before the election was called, they were unable to adjust to the new leader. So, there's so much for that tax the axe thing. That was gone. So I think if he did, I don't know if he's going to get elected, but if he did, he would have problems adjusting to certain, crisis, or be able to adjust, make an adjustment to if there was a certain policy that had to be changed. So I think he's more suited to be relegated to the opposition benches, because that way he can be that pit bull, to attack the government. So that's my take on that. And if they do lose the election, that's pretty much why they lost it, their inability to make that adjustment. Thanks, Larry.
Interesting. Terry, thanks for the call. The name I was trying to think of earlier, and I knew I had it written down here somewhere, was Jenny Byrne. Jenny Byrne. And Corey Tenike is the other guy. So they're both conservative strategists. And Tenike was the campaign manager for Doug Ford last 3 elections. And Jenny Byrne is currently the campaign manager for the Poilievre campaign. And that was part of what, they said they needed to make adjustments, and they weren't. And some of the people were pinning that on her, not Poilievre. More of your thoughts and calls in a moment. 570 News Radio. And here are the numbers you should have programmed into your telephone. 519-570-2545. That's to call the show, get through to the Talkback Hour. 519-570-2545. 1-800-570-5715, and star 570 for your cell. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, whatever you would like to chat about. Just before the break, Terry called and was talking about the debate tonight in the campaign, and let's be honest, it's going to be Poilievre or Carney. And it's interesting that Jagmeet Singh pivoted fairly early in the campaign to, I'm running to be prime minister, to, I would honor to be prime minister, but here's really what the NDP can do. Because the NDP, and I did a little deep dive into this a few months ago, and it kind of changed my thinking, because federally, I've often thought, why is there an NDP? Like, I understand they win provincial elections, and they're a presence, and a party is not just a federal party. It's every premier, and in some cases, though politics is not supposed to enter civic elections in this country. It does. Your mayors and your councillors and stuff have leanings. So the party is everybody across the country, not just nationally. Not just Jagmeet and a few MPs. But he changed his tone and sort of talked about what the NDP has done all these years in this country since they were the CCFs of Tommy Douglas. And that's to be the conscience of government. And I prefer this system to the very strict two-party system the United States has. And I get that in the United States sometimes there are libertarians and there's independents and there's this and that try and mount a serious campaign, but it'll almost forever, the way they are, be a two-party system. We're in practicality down to a two-party race here, but we've always been a multi-party system. We have 6 parties running in this election. 6. 2, practically speaking. So even though the NDP is changed and Jagmeet has changed his tone this time around, maybe pulled it back a bit, it's important that they're there. I always like that they're there. And the 2 people that I talked about that I'm just learning more about recently, I guess insiders always know about these people. And we all know that there are people pulling strings behind the scenes and there's campaign managers and we all know that. But these 2 names that have kept coming up, and one is Jenny Byrne and the other is Corey Tenike, conservative campaign strategists, the latter being Doug Ford and Byrne being the current one for Poilievre. And they disagree. They disagree on the next conservative strategy. This is why the Liberals, which I think was, whoever it was the dumbest, stupidest thing they could have done. I don't know if you heard about this. They went to a conservative event and they planted buttons at these sort of like bunches of buttons. They leave them on a table or whatever. And one of the buttons said, "Stop the Steal," with the O shaped like a stop sign. And it was like, it was white on red. And it was sort of to mimic the U.S. sentiment, "Stop the Steal," the Trump sentiment. And the other one was the names Jenny Byrne and Corey Tenike. And Jenny Byrne's, there was a line, her name was crossed out, and so it was the implication that your campaign is tanking, it's Jenny's fault, you should get Corey. And they planted these buttons there, and they were, of course, busted. The news busted them, and the mistake I think that Carney made was saying these people, it shouldn't have been done, he said, and these people have been reassigned. He should have said they've been fired, because he should have fired them. I don't know why you do something stupid like that when you're leading in the polls. It's just dumb. It shows no class. It shows desperation. It just shows a lot of things that just, I don't know who would have done this, who would have approved it, or whether it was totally rogue. I don't know, but it was dumb. But those are the 2 names that come up now. This Jenny and Corey is battling conservative strategists. Here's Ibrahim. Ibrahim, go ahead.
Hello, hi. How are you doing, Laurie? How are you? Hello?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to comment the topic you had for buying a Canadian.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we should stop using that, because we're hurting other businesses who have, as they're importing product from elsewhere, from whether from state or Europe or elsewhere, Canadian employees, Canadian employees, when we're buying only made here, so we're hurting other businesses.
Yeah, I agree, Abraham. Thanks for the call, by the way. But I totally agree. I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned that if you're going to buy Canadian, which is you're also going to presumably not buy American or even boycott American, all the Canadian people that work for American companies in this country, like McDonald's and Walmart and Amazon. And I mentioned that importers and exporters are Canadians who make a living through importing and exporting because of a system of free trade that we've had, free or basically free trade that we've had since World War II for decades. This is how the world is going to work. And free trade works because, tariffs source of revenue. Well, why would you turn down all that revenue? Why wouldn't you charge people for importing, which that's what a tariff is. It's a tax on imports. The importer has to pay this tax and the government gets revenue. Well, that sounds good, except goods go up and deals on tariffs are made, which leads to corruption, which is why in the States, FDR changed the rules back in the 40s, 50s. The idea of free trade is if we don't charge the tariffs, there'll be more trade, and more trade will mean more business, and more business will mean more tax revenue from corporate and individuals who have jobs and all of that kind of stuff. So we don't have to charge the tariffs because the trade is free, which will be more of it. And that's kind of what happened, and it's been working fairly well. But Ibrahim, a good point, it's mine as well, is that, importers, we import and export. A lot of our GDP is based on imports and exports in this country. And to say just buy Canadian, I get it, but it's oversimplified. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Want to hear your thoughts when we return on 570 News Radio. It is the Mike Farwell Show, and you'll hear Mike tonight at 6:30 for the pregame on 570 News Radio. He and Paul Fixter getting things started. Can't get to the odd, catch the action right here. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike on his show today as he prepares for the evening game. Here's Neil. Neil, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Larry. You're listening to the show this morning there, and I heard your reference to the buttons that were planted at the Conservative rally or meeting, whatever it was. And, you mentioned that my wife actually said the same thing, that these people should have been, instead of reassigned, they should have been let go. What she also pointed out, which I thought was quite observant, was the fact that somebody had to approve getting these things printed out and put together. So there was a plan in place to do this. And it's not beyond, anybody in politics to think they're clever and that they can get something over on the next guy by putting protesters at an event or tearing up another person's sign, this kind of thing. So it's something I think there's more to it. I mean, the fact that Carney says, along with the candidate who was going to suggesting people turn somebody in for the reward with the CCP or whatever, that was a good thing, and that was just a learning opportunity.
Right.
There was no strength in that statement. I mean, what happened to the days of doing the right thing? We've seen that with this past government in over 9 years. Somebody's guilty of an ethics breach. Growing up, they were done. You're out. You might be a sitting member, but you're no longer part of that circle that's making decisions for the party. We can't be seen as being associated with you. So the other thing that I noted, there's a lot of talk about, whether people really believe the polls and this kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not a pollster and I don't know the history, but I do know that there are a lot of new polling companies out there. And it's interesting, some of the ownership of those polling companies, who the corporation CEOs are, if they're past liberal strategists or campaign people, that kind of thing. There is a lot of that. What I did see, though, is the concern about media being complicit and biased. And as a university student many years ago, I actually took a sociology course where how to detect bias in the media, part of the course. Mm-hmm. So when CBC goes out and said that we're going to take photographs, we're looking at these still shots of these rallies. And how did he didn't have 15,000 people because we counted heads in a particular scene in a shot, and it was more like 2,000 at best, right? And then they give you a comparison of the Winnipeg Jets arena with 15,000 people. That's such a bias to begin with because they're not sitting side by side in a rally. They're shoulder to shoulder, packed to the doors in a big venue. Even the Edmonton police determined that there was between 10 to 12,000 people by their estimates. I recently attended the rally in Kitchener. I was curious to see what CBC would have said about that because I did something of a head count, and there was very close to 4,000 people in my mind. I did hear 5,000, but I don't believe CBC is complicit in their bias, and it's really disappointing because now that CTV is owned by a corporation based in Quebec with Bell Media, there isn't any news I can watch anymore. You know, in the U.S., at least you have two opposite ends of the spectrum if you're going to watch the news. We don't even have that anymore. We have a few journalists who ask tough questions, but very few, and getting fewer and fewer as we go on.
Neil, thank you. That's a lot said, a lot to filter, which we'll do in a moment. I want to get to Grant, though. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, did you watch 60 Minutes this weekend?
No.
No,
I did not. Somebody referenced it, but I don't know who was on.
But they were talking about banana ball. Kind of a unique spin to the game baseball, but it's out in Sardinia. There's 5 teams, and it's kind of funny. They have a.
Is this Grant? Let me interrupt you. Is this the Savannah Bananas from Savannah, Georgia?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen about a year ago I got into them, and there's a bunch of YouTube stuff on them. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see a picture with stilts on, right? And pitching to a player, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up because I've seen. Thanks for the call, Grant. I got to go, but it's. I've seen a lot of Savannah Banana stuff. They wear yellow uniforms and they call themselves the Bananas, and they have this whole Ted Lasso vibe in the locker room. And they're minor league ball, and they have all these kinds of rules. Like there was a Canadian guy who was now in his mid-30s and kind of done as a pitcher and had big contracts with big things, but wanted to run out his career. So he's playing in Savannah, and they make him wear a hockey glove and hockey pads for pitching. Exhibition games, because in regular league play, they have to cut back on the actual on-field stuff. But exhibition games, they have things like if a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out for the other team. It's like it's crazy fun. And the community just eats it up. They love the Savannah Bananas. And it's just fun. It throws fun into sports and organized sports. And the team is guys going up who want to be in the big leagues and guys on the way down. That's what that's what the Bull Durham kind of baseball team it is. But it's Savannah Bananas. Okay, I'm going to look that up. Thanks for the tip, Grant. This is 570 News Radio. More in a moment. Interesting to our last caller who talked about CBC not being fair. I don't know. I guess they have a bias, and I've spent my life in media, so I tend to recognize bias, or at least biases based on my biases. A biased person recognizes a biased person, kind of thing. It's impossible not to, it's almost impossible not to be. The overtness of bias sometimes is frustrating. I don't know that CTV isn't biased to the blue as CBC might be biased to the red. I don't know. Call it even at the end of the day. Maybe not. One more. We do have time for one more. What we do. Here's Ken. Ken, go ahead.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great. First-time caller. Gonna take it to a different area. Why do we never hear of lacrosse in the area? It's always hockey. Know. It's always hockey, baseball, so on and so forth. But
I mean, it's played. I don't know why it's not in the conversation more. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if you want to see an unbelievable game, watch the National Lacrosse League playing lacrosse. Makes hockey look pretty tame.
Okay. I'm glad you're a fan. It is our national game along with hockey, isn't it still?
Absolutely. And we've got a lot of young kids learning the game in the entire province of Ontario. My grandson was the goalie last year for Team Ontario in Regina, and
Nice.
they managed to bring the championship back to Ontario.
There we go. There we go.
Anyways.
Are they in playoffs now?
Oh, no. Their season is just starting.
Okay.
Yeah, the kids, they had a field lacrosse game this past Sunday, and they're playing over at the University of Guelph this coming Sunday.
And let me ask you, sir, is this arena or field?
This is field.
Field, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is field, but he also plays box. So.
Interesting. Well,
anyway,
Ken, I appreciate the call. Hopefully some people listening to this go, oh, yeah, lacrosse. Let's get into that a little more. Go lacrosse, go. Go Rangers, go. Mike Farwell, Paul Fixer, pregame tonight at 6:30 on 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Thanks for letting me fill in for Mike Farwell. We will talk soon.